Good evening, everyone. I hope it's warm enough in here for you all. Thanks for coming out on this frigid night, but I know nobody was going to miss tonight. I'm Ellen Cravato. I'm the CEO of New Canaan Library. Thank you. Welcome. So tonight, we continue with our incredible winning streak of welcoming Hollywood stars to our stage. The fabulous and accomplished actress Naomi Watts, whose work includes starring roles in Mulholland Drive, 21 Grams, The Impossible, both of those she's won Academy Award nominations for. And most recently, she received a Golden Globe nomination, which I'm sure you all know, for the quite miraculous portrayal of Babe Paley in Feud on FX. And if you haven't seen it, you're going to do that tonight when you go home. It's really incredible. I know we all want to talk about the Golden Globes. I want to talk about the Schiaparelli dress. I also would love to hear about her time being born in England, moving when she was 14, to Australia, immediately starting her acting career. But alas, or nonetheless, this evening we're here to talk about something different. A topic that has long been taboo, but which is swiftly becoming a very mainstream wellness discussion. Women and men across the country are starting to have this discussion around the dinner table and maybe the cocktail table. Menopause. Lucky for us that the equally fabulous Stacy London, best known as co-host of her iconic TLC show, What Not to Wear, is here to guide the conversation with her own brand of menopause wisdom and wit. Amazon has announced her new TV show with Clinton Kelly, which will be appearing, we think, in early spring, and we are very excited for that to air. Maybe she'll come back and visit with us. So Naomi's own early onset menopause symptoms led her down a road less traveled for Hollywood stars, for whom the topic of aging while being a woman was thought of as dangerous to one's career in the entertainment industry. At only age 36, Naomi felt unprepared, uneducated, and ashamed when she began experiencing symptoms that she would learn were the start of her entering perimenopause. Feeling confused, alone, and unsupported about this stage of her life, she was determined to do better for herself and for other women. And so she began to use her platform to normalize conversations about this natural process, forming what she calls a menopause, gotta love that, of doctors and experts. She sought answers and solutions to experiences that we know every woman must go through, but so few we're talking about. And so with the publication of Dare I Say It, which we are amongst the very first people to have this book in our hot little hands, she's clearly becoming one of the leading voices in menopause awareness today. In 2022, she founded Stripes Beauty, which is a skincare and wellness brand, to help generations of women prepare for and navigate this midlife transition. And in another sign of how New Canaan Library is always aiming to be in the vanguard, and with what may be the strangest sentence I will ever speak from this platform, we are so grateful to the Stripes team for providing everyone with a free sample of Badge of Honor personal lube for everybody here tonight. It is one per customer, and please do not try it in the library. Thank you, Holly Parmalee, as always, for making it possible for us to be here tonight amongst the very first people to get our hands on this highly informative and necessary book. We're only the second stop on the tour. Let's please demonstrate our sophistication and thoughtfulness and make this the best experience Naomi's going to have on her tour. Fittingly, today's New York Times featured an article in which I learned that she's a huge David Bowie fan. So please help me and David Bowie welcome Naomi and Stacy to the stage with what must be the theme song of the book tour.
God, there are so many people out there. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you for that cool introduction.
I know, it was so amazing. I was like, we should just take her on the road. Right? There you are. All right. Well, here we all are. Thank you all for coming. This is very exciting. I know you're not here for me. Let's talk a little bit, Naomi, about this book. You have written like one of the first truly personal experiences, and I would say manuals for how we can start to reconcile ourselves to this stage of life, what this stage of life is. And you even touch on why you had to write this book, right? So let's start there. Where did you get the idea? And when did you say, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, very different times.
Yes.
I thought about doing it in my early 40s because, as she just said, I was 36 when I first was told you're going to go into early menopause. And that was right at the precipice when I wanted to start a family. So it was terrible news for me. And I had no idea really what menopause was, other than, yes, a light bulb went off and my mum had told me long ago that she had gone into menopause at 45. It felt a long way away from where I was. So I just panicked. I dealt with the fertility thing, which took years, and having to, feel like I was fighting off menopause, which is not a thing. But I somehow managed to get pregnant. The word perimenopause wasn't even mentioned, actually, which would have been a much gentler word.
Well, it's funny, actually. I'm sorry, guys. I've got to put on reading glasses because I am 55. I noticed that somebody actually asked this, and I'm going to pepper this interview with questions, but somebody said, what do you know now about menopause that you wish you knew when you were in peri? Did you know they were different?
Yeah, I didn't know. I just knew very little about menopause. So after my second baby, I went deep into hardcore symptoms, and the worst of which was the sleeping thing, because I would have night sweats, which, by the way, I had been having night sweats for several years before. I'd been ticking the list of medical questions every time I did a movie when you have to say you're healthy, basically. Night sweats every time for years. Everyone just chalked it up to, oh, well, probably allergic to something, maybe stressed.
Or you run hot.
So I really knew nothing, and it seemed like nobody else was on the know either. They were certainly not going, oh, let's look into that. So I was out there flailing around trying to piecemeal information together. So finally, when I was about my mid-40s by then, I had skin issues, really bad, sudden, raging, alarmingly red and angry skin, and I didn't know what to do. I went to the dermatologist. They said, here's some ointment. It would soothe it for a few days, but it would come back. And so I had to eliminate all of the skin products that I was using that had been working well for me over time before, and then switch to a gentler ingredient. And I started researching skin, like becoming fascinated with ingredients and what would make me soothe but hydrated at the same time. And then as I was looking into these skincare brands, I was like, wait, it's promising all these things, which I know can't happen. And I don't want to look like a 28-year-old anymore.
Me neither.
I want to be me, and I want to have a brand that I can trust and not be fed all of this
Crap.
hogwash. Yeah. So I decided to make my own brand, which you talked about, Stripes Beauty, and to create an ultra level of hydration from scalp to vag. And that's why we named one of our products a moisturizer for down there, Vag of Honor. And I'm glad that it got the laugh that it did, because we want to bring you into it and make you feel better, not just have your skin smoother and hydrated better, but actually make you feel included, like you belong to something, that you're not invisible. It's not the end. And this is something that you can, feel good about.
It's interesting, and I am so excited for you all to read this book. I have, in fact, read it before you. So there's one thing in this book, not to brag, but there is one thing in this book that I found so important to talk about that isn't directly about menopause, but is very much about what happens when a lot of people are on the other side of menopause, is that we recognize that, particularly as women and non-binary folks, trans folks, that we have been people pleasers our entire lives. And you talk about this in the book. I was a medical people pleaser. I, had a zillion different symptoms. I had heart palpitations. I was depressed. I was anxious. My skin was a mess. I didn't want to have sex. I didn't care about anything. I was like, I'm dead inside. What has happened to me? And my doctor said, it's menopause. You'll get over it. And I thought, I must be hysterical. Because my doctor, who is a woman, has been taught the same patriarchal medicine as everybody else, was like, we don't talk about menopause, so I must be overreacting. Instead of realizing that we have to do our own research, be our own advocate, how do you feel that through this journey, both creating Stripes and writing this book, you have become more or less of a people pleaser?
Much less. And I forgot to answer your first question, which was writing the book, thinking about it in my early 40s, too afraid of it, and then getting to the point where I could no longer hold the secret anymore. The burden became too cumbersome. And in my own industry, where announcing your age would be considered career suicide.
Even in reality TV, which is not the same as like Academy Award nominations. When I started What Not to Wear, I was 32, and people told me to start lying about my age.
Yes, yeah.
Did you ever?
I was told to do that too in the early days, and I never felt comfortable about it. It's too exhausting. Telling lies, holding secrets, all of it. It's just too exhausting.
And is that part of people pleasing?
That is, not wanting to make waves. And yes, okay, I can deal with my suffering alone. But the truth is, it's so freeing when you identify what that is, name it, own it, and share it. And that's what I did and needed to do. This is the book that I wanted when I was alone at 36, wondering what the hell was going on with myself. Was it over? Was I ever going to feel like myself again? In fact, just going back to the fertility piece, I read a book when I was having those struggles getting pregnant that I would hide and read. And it kind of changed my life, that book. I felt like I had a friend, like I had a way to connect with some really good information, with another person's story that reflected my own. And it was very healing, very soothing. And so this is what I wanted. And I actually pitched it to a friend of mine and said, there should be a book out there that's, gives you the information. Because, by the way, the internet was not even that active when I was wanting this book. And I was saying to her, I want something that's informative, that's not all doom and gloom, that's funny, that's raw and honest, and other women sharing their stories, talking to doctors, and sexy, something that's sexy, that makes you feel like I'm still alive, I'm still relevant, and I still want to have sex. All of it. I wanted to have the whole thing. And she was like, you should write that. And I was like, I'm not a writer, I'm an actor. And she went, you're a storyteller, though. Yes. So you should do it. It took me 10 years, though.
Well, good. Look, better late than never. And actually right on time, because this menopause has become, it's a buzzword. I mean, we're really talking about it a lot. I do think that a lot of credit, first of all, the book is written in such a wonderful tone that you really do feel like we're all friends with you. And I think that's very important, because a lot of what happens to us in perimenopause, why don't we just clarify for everybody? Peri is everything until menopause, which is the first day of your last period, right? No, your last day.
1 year after your last.
Thank you. You're saying it much better than me. 1 year after your last period. Before that, you can get pregnant. You can still have all sorts of menopausal symptoms, usually things like hot flashes and night sweats are things you're going to experience first. Mood fluctuation, forgetfulness,
migraines,
sleep,
skin issues,
food allergies. Let's just go back and forth. It's so much fun. But
so exciting.
Exactly. As you were saying, you don't want to have sex or it hurts or whatever. But what you were saying is that it's not all doom and gloom, and you didn't want a book that reflected that. And I think that that's also very important. We needed to talk about the doom and gloom, I think, because nobody was telling us that we weren't crazy. right? And I think that's one of the things that you elucidate so well in the book. You explain what is actually going on with our hormones, why we are having the symptoms or issues that we may be having. And, the average age for somebody who reaches menopause is 51. So before that, anytime as early as you were 36 when you were on the brink of early menopause. So anytime before that, you can go into menopause. And if you don't know anything about it, how are you going to know what to do, right? Agency only comes with knowledge, and that gives you power. And to have really done such a good job explaining the physical, the emotional, the psychological, the aging, the sex.
The workplace, family, all of it.
Yeah.
I wanted it because there's so much that can happen during that time. And I think really the point of the book is to help everyone understand that it's not the end. A lot of things, great things can happen after 50.
Well, let's just talk about you for a second, right? I mean, the Schiaparelli dress was amazing, and you were just nominated for a Golden Globe. And when did you get married?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. And I mean,
For the first time.
For the first time. Yeah. And these are the things that I find so fascinating, is that there is this concept, right, which I think is part of the kind of patriarchal systems under which we live, that we were kind of kept in the dark for a long time. And as I say, in really almost any conversation that I moderate, there is a woman named Latham Thomas, her name is Glow Maven on Instagram, who said the most interesting thing to me that made me realize why we don't know anything about menopause, or we didn't. It's that women have never been taught to feel safe in their bodies. We don't know what's going on, right? We were shunned for getting our periods, right? We used to go into red tents back in the day. And you were talking about fertility, words associated with that, with, performance and failure, as if you're being judged on whether or not you can have a child. And then you get to perimenopause and you're completely invisible. That feels, how are you going to be able to trust your gut, your intuition, if you don't know yourself at all, if you've been taught not to know yourself?
Yeah. Well, Jen Gunter, a doctor who some of you may have heard about, spoke about it. It's not that long ago that the patriarchy was saying once you're no longer in the reproductive years, you're of no use, and you're just chucked off into the pile of garbage.
Right, right. The garbage of the
I even
society.
got that message going into Hollywood and I started late. And I got my great career launch at 30-ish with Mulholland Drive. And I remember someone saying, you better get going, you better work a lot because it's all going to be over at 40. And I said, well, what do you mean? Why? Oh, well, just leading ladies. I mean, you don't really play a leading lady once you get to that point. And I said, what point? What is that point? And they said, oh, well, when you become unfuckable. And I went,
last fuckable
what?
Day.
Oh my God. Sorry, that's very bad language for a library, I understand. But I think you get
We're
the
all
point.
friends here.
So again, not useful after those, things are not working anymore. I didn't like that story.
I bet.
But the good news is that's changed. Look at the movies this year that are all eligible for Oscars, and women in their 50s triumphing in incredible female-driven stories and, playing sexy parts,
yes,
parts about aging, all kinds of things. So I think the tide has definitely shifted, and it will continue to, now that the conversation is open. And it did take us to crack it open. In the medical system, many stories in the book of women saying their doctors weren't hearing them, their doctors weren't listening, or sending them away with a sleeping pill or antidepressant. And that's fine for a minute, but you got to think about that point beyond that moment.
Yes.
And so I go into how a woman should prepare in talking to their doctor, get ready, and because a doctor sometimes only has 7 minutes, 3 of which you've got to undress, and So it's a lot, but it takes advocating for yourself and communicating with your doctor, communicating with your friends, your partner, even in the workplace. Guys, it's too hot in here. Like, please, can we bring it down a notch?
Just a little bit. Right. And also, I think, again, there is a statistic that I read that 4 in 10 women, while going through perimenopause, will think about leaving their job, and 1 in 10 will. And for me, those are terrifying statistics that could be used against us. So to advocate for ourselves and our health and longevity is also about our productivity in the workplace. If we're going to make these kinds of concessions, let's say, I don't know, breastfeeding rooms, we can have that room could be cold. If you need to step out for a second. And I think also you are really talking about the fact that we are learning how to normalize, destigmatize first. That only somebody in the public eye like you, I really, truly kudos to you, because I think you need that kind of platform to be able to say, it's okay, guys, we're going to do this. We're going to do it together, and you jumped right in. So congratulations, because that was amazing. But I also think that what you're talking about when you are preparing us with this book, which has so much information in it, is also what you were talking about with Stripes, that there's somewhere for you to go, that there's someone who's speaking your language. And my catchword for 2025 is community.
Absolutely. And we're nothing without the strength of our friends, without community. It's everything. And I have to say that's one of the most liberating things about being 50 is I've got not only friends that I've had for decades, but the women that I meet now, and we're all, we're
in it.
We're just all in it, and we share more easily. We have less blanks to give. We just don't care about the small shit anymore.
Right.
We just lean into getting deep and real right away, and it's very liberating.
I think, again, this has a lot to do with the fact that we are tired of the facade. I'm even tired of the facade on social media. I'm like, first of all, everybody I used to follow now is being sponsored by somebody to say something rather than just posting. So social media has become something else. And it's only the best part of your life that you're ever going to show. So when we're
My mom always used to talk about it. She always used to say, I was happiest in my 50s. And she couldn't quite articulate it, but now I'm here, or whenever she did, I was like, really? Why? I don't get that. But and now I'm here. I get it. I think it's just you've gone through enough ups and downs. You've failed and you've succeeded. You know what it's like. You know how to recover, and everything. And we're not aiming for that all the time.
Well, you know what? I think that's a really important point. I think this is something else that, again, menopause, it's not just about menopause, I think is about, if you're coming to it chronologically, it's a real reckoning. You are saying goodbye, and you talk about this a lot. You have to grieve the person that you were to fully embrace the person you're going to become. And grief is complicated. It is hard to say goodbye to the parts of ourselves that are no longer useful for us, let alone, saying goodbye to the parts that we loved.
Yes. And then dealing with an emptying house or,
absolutely.
those
or elder
things.
care. We are, I was told between 45 and 55 is really sort of when women have the highest rate of decreased earning potential, depression, and divorce. And I don't think that's by accident, people. This is why the book is so important. Our social relationships, and just to go back to what we were saying before, you are destigmatizing and normalizing this conversation. And once you read this book, this is why this information is so important. It's not just for us. We have to go and democratize this information for everybody. Yeah. We have to figure out how people who can't afford even to see a doctor for 7 minutes, who are living in a domestic abuse shelter, are going to be able to recognize and understand what is happening to them the same way you are going to be able to recognize, track symptoms, and take care of your own well-being. This is because we have no clinical research on women. Women weren't even legally needed to be in clinical trials of any kind until 1993.
No, it's crazy.
Is that insane?
So insane. But now things are changing. I mean, yes, we've sat in those symposiums before where you hear doctors saying that they had no training whatsoever.
Yes,
or
let's talk a
maybe
little
an
bit about
hour.
that. Yeah.
One lecture or something.
Well, why
in their
was that?
entire residency. Because the conversation wasn't open.
Right.
It wasn't open, and no one spoke a word about it. I mean, I said to my mother, "Why didn't you tell me more?" And she said, "These were the conversations I didn't have with you because my mother never had them with me." Right. So it was like this code of silence that they all agreed upon. And they were just taught to suffer.
Yeah, taught to suffer.
And I think our generation is the first generation that's actually spoken up and said, actually, I don't want to suffer. I would like some care. I would like some treatment. And please, help me.
I also think Gen X, this is part of the legacy that we're going to leave as a generation. I think, exactly what you're saying. I would like some care. But also, Gen X going into their 50s is a little bit different than Edith Bunker, right? One thing, we have way better hairstyles. And it doesn't, and we are the product of a generation of great cosmetic dermatology. We don't look our age. We are healthier and wealthier than we have ever been. And I think that is, and I don't care whether I look my age or not, let me take that back. But generally speaking, I think Gen X is much healthier and wealthier than the generations before them. We are demanding more. Because
we're living longer.
Because we're living longer, and I'm still up for a martini. I'm still a good time. So these are the things that I think that this kind of book is going to do. Is really going to say, okay, we're now giving permission for the women that we thought had an expiration date. We recognize has no expiration date. It's the values that we held in our youth that expire. And this reckoning with menopause is much more about what values do you hold now? And really, what do you think that you've learned most in the journey of writing the book?
I would say, it was definitely hard writing a book. The beginning and the end were the most challenging parts of it. I could have kept going for years, actually.
Well,
so many stories to
sequel?
include. Maybe, I don't know. But I felt like I came into another version of myself, like you say, and I say this line in the book, I feel like menopause is there to almost break up with your old self. And it's not because it's the end, it's just a new chapter. And how do we reinvent ourselves in a new way? How do we stay at the core of who we are, but move into this, transition into this next period of time with strength, with joy, and with, hope, I think. And I talk about each part of it. I talk about how to dress, even if you want, we speak to each other about it. Skincare. I talk about strength and exercise, and that's a big part of my life because I don't want to be skinny. I want to be strong, and I want to live as long as possible.
Yes, sorry, go ahead.
No.
I was just going to say that is the refrain that I have heard over and over again as women educate themselves about menopause. I don't want to be skinny. I want to be strong.
Yeah.
I don't want to fall down when I'm 85 and wind up.
That is the story of our mother's generation.
Yes.
It happens. And then they have a struggle towards the end of their lives. And by the way, I'll just throw in, I lost 2 grandmothers last year, but only last year.
Wow.
One of them was 101 and a half, and one of them was 99. So I better not fuck it up.
Yeah, don't fuck it up. Don't break anything. But, it is actually, I would say some of the, what are the things that you learned that are the most important? Like, I realized that I had to go on HRT.
Yes.
I was told for years that I could not. And all of a sudden, we weren't talking about HRT, and I was asking why nobody got training in medical school because of the WHI report,
Studies, yeah.
which is just, we'll say, was bad data and probably the worst thing that ever happened to women. It was not meant to be a study on menopause. And the findings were completely inaccurate. So this idea that we just stopped talking about hormones was because they cause cancer, period. There was no discussion about it, right?
Yeah. So I do devote an entire chapter to HRT, and Yeah, well, one is very dense and the other is more about the how to dose it and things like that. But it's such a complex subject, and these were the chapters that really kind of scared me because there's still a lack of alignment within the medical system, and people are either really for it or really against it, and there's just a real education gap, and I just encourage people to figure out what their symptoms are. If you can write those down and then go to your doctor and figure out what questions you have before you get in the room, do a certain amount of reading. There's a great article in the New York Times a couple years ago by Susan Dominus. She gets very, very granular on it. Do your own research and go in and explain what it is. As if you feel a sense of gatekeeping, then that might not be the right doctor for you.
And I learned you can fire your doctors.
Yeah. Yes.
If you are not getting what you want, I went away for the longest time being like, oh, okay, if that's what I should do, then I'll do it. And now I'm like, this is not what I am interested in. I'm out of here. And, one of the things that I think is so interesting is I never thought to interview doctors. I sort of went where insurance told me to go instead of thinking, is this person the right person for me? As I age, I changed gynecologist. I didn't want an OB. Because I wanted somebody who was going to deal with older women and not, sort of be running around trying to, fit me in between babies. Exactly. So the HRT thing, the reason I want to talk about it is because it's now come so much more back into the conversation. And you talked to Kelly Casperson, who is a big advocate of testosterone. There is a lot of controversy around that. There's a lot of controversy about what bioidentical means, and you go into that. There are so many things that I think we don't know about menopause because we don't have enough clinical research. But one of the things that I think is so interesting is that you really do break it down for us in a way that makes it understandable. So this is part of your research.
And I will add, because it is such a divisive topic,
yes.
I went over and over and over again. I had other doctors check what other doctors were saying and then, had them look at their quotes again. Are you okay with this? Will you sign off on it? I had fact checkers. I went very, very deep on it because I don't want to be here saying this is what you should do. And I would never do that anyway. I'm not a doctor. Haven't even played one. So so I was very, very careful about that. But I did want to impart as much knowledge as I could through speaking to all of the right people over the years, and that was...
Yeah, I mean, there are so many doctors quoted in the book. I kind of lost count. It was amazing. And some of those doctors, I think this is where we are sort of in the menopause movement, so to speak, is that, first we had to get it out there, right? We had to get it on the scene. We've got books, we've got spokespeople, we've got people out here talking about it, saying, this, you are not crazy, this is real, we have to figure this out. And then you have all of these doctors who start, helping and talking, and then you have all the disagreements.
Yes,
You
the fights.
right? You get the information, and then there's controversy. One doctor says the other doctor is like, lying.
Isn't that what takes place when any change happens?
Exactly.
It's something gets loud, we're really excited, and then the conflict comes in, and it's like you go forward and then a little bit back, and that seems to be the case with anything
new.
Yeah.
Right? And this is truly almost like a new vertical in medicine and in the way we think about longevity. I never thought about strength training until I was in my 40s. That's the other thing, and I keep wanting to hold the book, but is that I wish that somebody had told me in my 20s, this is what's going to happen. You may or may not have kids, and then menopause is like a whole other thing. It's not, sometimes it bothers me when I hear people say it's like adolescence in reverse, or it's puberty, your second puberty, because I think it's such a bigger reckoning with life. And, as you said, there's kids leaving home, elder care, you might lose your job or want to pivot, you might want to get divorced when you are least physiologically able to handle all of that pressure. And I think that
And without empathy.
Exactly.
Without, I mean, now a lot of us are having kids much later. And you're dealing with menopause and puberty all under the one roof.
I don't envy.
And there's all the empathy in the world for the teenagers who slam the door in your face or roll their eyes. Yeah, like, what? What are you saying? No, I was just asking if you would like some tea. Yeah. Like, dare you?
Really?
Like, yeah.
Dare I say it?
Yeah. So, we understand what puberty is. There's all the empathy in the world. It's just those hormones going surging, and if mommy's having a bad day,
then mommy's just being a pain.
Yeah, or crazy.
Right, or crazy. Yeah. And I think there were two things that I was thinking. One, for anybody who is younger in this audience, you will thank your future self the more you know about where you're headed. And everybody who has female physiology is going to go through menopause. You may not have the same symptoms.
If we're lucky enough.
Yes, if we're lucky enough.
Long enough, yeah.
And you will not have an experience that is identical to anybody else's. But if I had known, and if I had thought to invest in future me, right? You were talking about teenagers and being in your 20s. I thought I was invincible. I didn't think about being old.
Yeah.
And again, I wouldn't say that we are. But I didn't think about what I could do to invest in my health. And I really believe that our generation is here to recognize, you've got tech cajillionaires on one side trying to figure out how to live forever. And then I think you have people, in particular women, who are trying to figure out how we're going to live better. And I think that's what this book proves, is that we need to disseminate this information in a way that feels friendly and in a way that feels like we are in this together, in order to really be informed. If, we talk a lot about bodily autonomy with women. If you don't know what's going on with your own body, then you don't have autonomy. Should we look at some of the questions?
Oh, sure.
I know that you guys asked some questions earlier, and I want to make sure that we get to them. Jody A., a fellow Aussie, asks, how do you still feel connected to your Aussie roots?
Oh, where's Jody? Hi.
Jody, stand up so we can just see you and say hello.
Hi, Jody.
Hi, Jody. Oh, she's blonde too.
I am very connected to my Australian roots. I actually was born in England and immigrated to Australia when I was 14.
Must have been hard.
It was hard. And, again, probably why I became a storyteller, always feeling a little bit on the outside of everything, like the need to belong. And I moved to Australia, but so I was definitely formed, but there was a lot of change, obviously. I miss Australia. I feel very far away from Australia living in New York City, and I go there too little now that my grandmother's gone and my mother moved to Europe. So, but most of my girlfriends are Australian, and we are quite the posse. And if I have a glass of wine, my Australian accent gets way stronger.
Who's got wine? Who's got wine? That's so funny because you were with Laura Brown, right?
Yes,
last night.
Yeah.
And then, Sarah B., you asked, what do you know now about menopause that you wish you knew when you were in Perry? This is the question that I asked before, but why don't we get you to stand up, Sarah? Sarah B.?
Hi,
Hi.
Sarah. Well, yeah, this is why I wrote the book, because I knew nothing. I literally knew nothing, and I wanted so much. I needed so much information. I needed support. I needed treatment. I needed a friend. Every time I turned to a friend and made a joke about an estrogen dip or something, I felt nervous laughter. I felt a block, A friend would say, "Oh, don't be silly. You're way too young."
You're so young.
So it just felt like, no, this conversation is going nowhere fast. And so I retreated and became sort of more and more shameful about it. So I I really needed some kind of, if I couldn't have a friend, I needed a book that I could hide, like I did with my fertility experience. And so, yeah, I just wish I had knowledge more than, and community. Community is everything. Because once you're able to share your problem, that you're, whatever it is that you're suffering from, it's almost halfway to solving, because you're just living with it. It's just too big of a burden, and sharing it makes it, seem less horrific somehow.
It's interesting because I know you were close to David Lynch, and he said, it's only dark until you turn the light on. And what I found so interesting about that is, like, we're so afraid of what we don't know. And to arm ourselves with knowledge just makes it so much easier. If I had known that, a Mack truck was headed towards me, well, I probably would have gotten out of the way, like, instead of being run over by it. And those are the reasons that we need information. You will start to think that, something doesn't feel right, and you don't know exactly how to describe it. And the idea that you were keeping that all in is not, I wonder if it's not just about people pleasing, but the word that you use is shame. And you talk about shame in the book.
A whole chapter on shame.
A lot. And I found that to be very important, because I think fear and shame are healthy emotions when they're, fear is like, you're in danger, run away. And shame, you have to have some sort of moral compass. But they're also the two feelings, I think, that probably stop us the most from doing the thing we most need or want to do. And you write about it so eloquently when it comes to this topic. Was that a hard chapter for you to write?
Yes, and that's where I really also wanted to collect a lot of women's stories as well, because I know it's a shared experience that we've all experienced that, whether it's about our bodies, the way they look, the way they feel, within relationships, not being able to share, why sex may hurt, and then withdrawing from sex altogether. And so it was confronting. And the point of going there is not just for me to feel better. I was only going to do this if it was scary for myself, and that it would produce some kind of growth in myself that would perhaps touch somebody else's story. And this is why I love what I do, why I love to act, because I'm really just interested in having my story reflect yours. And that's what, we go into that in the shame chapter, actually all the way through, is hopefully sharing stories that are going to touch yours.
Well, I remember the first time we talked about it, I was like, I just felt so relieved. There's like somebody who understands what I'm saying. It's not coming out of nowhere. This is shared experience. And that in itself is its own kind of vernacular, right? It's its own community. And I think the bigger we make that community, the better off we're going to be. And, maybe we just start a, dare I say it, book club and a hotline.
Well,
but Naomi's not going to answer.
No, the club thing is actually a real thing. I wanted to create a club when I created the brand.
Right.
A community, a sense of you do belong. You do not have to go to the corner and pull out your knitting needles. There's still so much more to do. I have so much energy and so much, so many plans, so many things I haven't done yet. And so let's come together. Let's look around and know that we're in the same kind of world, going through the same kind of things, and figure out what we can do together.
Yes.
And I wanted that feeling in Stripes Beauty, and I also hope that that's what this will create too.
Yeah. All right, just to get back to some other questions. Sorry, these glasses are way too big for my face and they keep falling off. Ellen C. asked, what is your opinion of the benefits versus the supposed risks of HRT? So we talked a little bit about that, but what were the benefits for you?
Well, benefits for me was sleeping. And I mean, progesterone with HRT, with estrogen, is a fantastic balance for me. The sleeping thing, I had to get dealt with right away, because if I didn't sleep, I was going to have anxiety the next day. I was going to have depression. I would lose my memory. I still lose my memory, but things, women talk about how they can be in a meeting with like 15 men and suddenly they lose a word, which sends panic through them. And then, it throws the whole meeting. Yeah. So if it's safe for you, it's a fantastic option.
It's a tool.
It is. And there are risks and benefits for every single medication that you're taking. You need to do the research. You need to tell your doctor your symptoms, your medical history, obviously, and see if you and your doctor think it's a good idea. Yeah. It was a good idea for me, and I've stayed on it, and I will keep going.
Me too. After being told, for a bunch of reasons that had nothing really to do with science, that I couldn't be on HRT, I went on it. Not only did I go from sleeping 4 hours a night to a good 8, like all the time. Sometimes I just like to go to sleep early anyway. But that idea that it could change so drastically, and I felt it really helped, progesterone really helped with mood.
Yeah. Definitely. And sleep.
And sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, for yourselves and for your edification, there are chapters in the book on HRT and how to discuss it also with your doctor. Jen R. Oh, sorry, and LNC, I didn't ask you to stand up. Where are you? Ellen?
Okay.
All right.
Maybe she doesn't want to.
Maybe Ellen doesn't want to stand up. Okay. Jen R., what are the daily habits you hold most dear?
Daily habits, good or bad?
I mean, listen, that's up for grabs here. There was no value judgment.
Playing Wordle every single morning.
I do. Oh my God, really? Wow.
Coffee, obviously. I wouldn't say every day exercise, but I really love that to be part of my routine.
Yes.
Not just because I want my body to look good. I want my mind to feel right.
Yes.
And I want my body to feel strong. And I've changed my exercise a lot due to where I'm at. I don't jump around in a dance class like I used to. I used to have a lot of fun doing that, but now I do weights, my strength training. I like to keep that as a habit. What else? I cook as much as possible. I really find joy in cooking and being around the dinner table with the kids.
Those are some pretty great habits.
Really standard, same as everyone, really, I think.
Well, a lot of people actually wake up and look at their phone.
Oh, yeah. That's a bad habit.
That's a
definitely.
bad habit.
Yeah.
That's a bad habit. Yeah. Okay. Okay, Jen R., were you going to stand up? Am I making you uncomfortable? Oh, hi, Jen. I love that sleeve. Belle's sleeve looks so good. Did anybody else need? No, sorry. Joanne S. asks, how do you fight postmenopausal weight gain and body changes? Well, you take this one.
Again, I'm about staying strong. My weight has mercifully been around the same the whole time, but I do get middle section that I have to, it just distributes differently with me.
Well, I think that's the word, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people have said that weight management is really aging. It's not menopause that you gain weight. It's just that it coincides with when your body starts aging. And what you were saying about, okay, now I'm having a menopause minute. What were we just talking about?
Weight.
Oh, right, weight. See, it happens. See, at least I admit it now. Instead of panicking, I'm just like, I'm an idiot. I can't think of the word. That it's body weight redistribution.
Yeah.
So, right, your boobs can get bigger. The tummy is the middle.
Everyone differently. Like someone may battle with their weight. I battle with my hair. I have like 3 hairs left on my head as far as I'm concerned. It's hair loss. I find it on the pillow. I find it on my clothes. Hi, I see a friend there that probably has the same. We not you, Tanya. I wasn't calling you. Do you? Do you? Yeah, I just went on minoxidil. Is that you?
Oh,
the
really?
one? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are some interesting
hoping
ideas
for
for
good
people with
results.
thinning hair.
Yeah. By the way, I'm very impressed with how many men there are in this group.
Yes, it's true.
Hi, John. I've seen it.
It's very true. I mean, look, we need allies, guys.
And it is a conversation that they should be brought into. Again, erasing shame, getting rid of it entirely, because it does affect the entire family. And I had a deal with this conversation with my now husband right at the point where I was going through menopause. In fact, I mention it in the book, a very, very embarrassing moment, to the point where we're getting hot and heavy, and I had to excuse myself not to get into something more comfortable, nice little negligee, to go and scratch off my patch. And I was mortified. And if anyone wears the patch, they know that the adhesive is pretty strong and it leaves what looks like a bullet hole in your body.
Exactly. Goo Gone for your body is what you need for that, by the way.
Yeah, well,
it took forever to order from Amazon because it's sold out everywhere. Anybody wearing a patch is using Goo Gone.
Yeah, so what is Goo Gone?
Goo Gone, well, Goo Gone is really to get stuff off, like when you have a price tag stuck to a candle.
Right.
You use it for that, but then they made it
Probably
for the
highly
body.
toxic.
No,
I
it
bet.
is. But let me just explain. They do make one that is for body adhesive.
Okay.
It took me forever to find
by the way, my doctor said just use car oil.
Oh, interesting.
And I say it in the book. I'm like, really? I don't want to put car oil on my body.
Well, my biggest concern is that the Goo Gone for your body is actually just Goo Gone put in a different bottle, right? So we don't know. It smells the same, but it is helpful for any. It's a quick, quick trick if you're about to get down and dirty.
Yeah. So I was busy in the bathroom for a bit too long at that exact moment, and he said, "Is everything okay in there?" And I came out flustered, and he said, "What's wrong? Are you not in the mood?" And I said, "Well, no, it's just, you see, the thing is that, well, I'm experiencing menopausal symptoms, and I have to take medication, and I stick it on this patch, and it goes there, and basically, I'm old. Should I just leave?" And he looked at me and went, "Oh God, no, that's great. This is great that you're getting treatment, and thank you for telling me. How can I help?" And in that moment, he melted me. I had to fight to get that story in the book, by the way, because he's so private. But yeah, it was some of the most romantic words I've ever heard. But he wanted to be included in the conversation, and that's what I was saying. Like, the men have to be part of this conversation. Don't leave them, in the mystery of trying to make up what things might be happening, what might be going on with your body or in your mind. Bring them in, because 9 times out of 10, I would say they want to help. They do.
I also think it's interesting because this all falls under the holding everything in burden, which I do think is a part of this people-pleasing aspect that we all have. It's not like that we're all over people-pleasers, but I do think this idea of holding things secret, right, makes them, what you were saying before, that burden. I can feel that. And I think the more open, transparent, authentic, and honest we can be, there's just a sigh of relief. We're all the same. This is easy. And when you've got people who are on your team, on your side, men, your partners, it makes it that much better and easier to get into it and embrace it. And I didn't, know that story until I read the book, and I just thought, I swooned. Right, how would I know that story unless you told it to me? Billy actually was like, "Hey, let me tell you this story before you interview Naomi." No. But those are really beautiful moments, and we're robbing ourselves of them by thinking that we should be embarrassed.
It's half the population.
We're actually 51%.
Yeah,
I think.
well, there you go.
Right? Okay, we have 2 more questions, and I want to make sure we get to them. This was an anonymous audience member asked, what are a few different ways that you ensure you get enough sleep? So we know HRT is certainly one of them.
I've definitely used a sleep aid here and there. I try not to. We at Stripes Beauty have something called the Dream Date. That's a very gentle one if you don't want to use prescription medication. I get in the bath every night. That is my way to come down from the day. If I finish my day early enough, that's my way of just relaxing my routine. That sort of sets the rhythm of calming me down and getting ready for sleep. I try not to use that phone, especially now. And
I think the recommendation is what, 3 hours before sleep?
to not use the phone? Yeah, well, I definitely don't.
Yeah, I
I'm
don't.
not that good.
I know people say an hour, but I think really for
and not eating or drinking
exactly.
too much. I was wearing the Aura ring. To study your sleep. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, and it tells you the quality of sleep that you're getting, and it tells you good things to do and bad things to do. Certainly, if I'm traveling, jet lag is a problem, and that's where I might move to something more, there's Benadryl, Tylenol PM, or it might go stronger than that if I really need to.
Yeah. I mean, for years, actually, I took Lunesta because I could barely get the 4 hours. And, it's very interesting. I think, we talk about sleep and nutrition and exercise, right, as the three pillars of good health. But really, in reading this and my own personal experience, is that sleep is actually the foundation on which diet, exercise, mood, everything else rests. If you are not sleeping, your brain cannot recharge. It cannot clean itself. It cannot do the things that it really needs to do.
Absolutely. If I have 3 days of not sleeping more than 6 hours, it's a non-starter for me. I'm come undone.
And it's also interesting that we start to realize these things, and that you've made lifestyle modifications. Now you know that sleep is something that you need to prioritize, even though I'm sure you're like the cutest bunny on the dance floor, but getting home at like 2:30 in the morning or 3 a.m.
No, 9:30 is my bedtime.
Okay, last question is also anonymous. What is your best-selling item at Stripes Beauty and why? And what is the most surprising bestseller?
Well, Badge of Honor is a definite bestseller, which is why I wanted to bring it for you guys. And it's I think it's a really innovative product. There's nothing on the market like it. And also I want to speak to the title of it. I wanted it to be fun. Take away the shame with humor. Make it accessible. Humor diffuses pain. And we noticed that, that there was nothing on the market like it, skincare for down there. And again, being in my 50s and not wanting my sex life to be finished, I needed support. So that is our bestseller. And it's not surprising to me.
Not at all, really. Yeah. I mean, I feel like vaginal health in general is now becoming its own category.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. We also have a lube called Oh My Glide, OMG, and it's a long-lasting one, so it's oil-based. And
I mean, I always say the only thing you want to try in menopause is a martini.
And then also we have, and I wanted a full line of products from scalp to vag, because those, when you lose estrogen, you lose hydration. So we've got a fantastic hair mask called Crown Pleaser. People love this product for thicker, more voluminous, shiny hair. And a body oil called Full Monty, which is it smells delicious and absorbs really quickly. Those are two of our other bestsellers.
Are you surprised? Were you surprised that the Badge of Honor was like such a great seller? Or did you know
I kind of felt like we were onto something.
Yeah, I think it's also that you were experiencing the things that you knew you needed, right? I mean, you were like, hey, we've got to do
chances are that others are going to have the same needs.
Exactly. What I think is interesting, and I wonder if you have struggled at all with this with Stripes, is to really have created a different vertical, right? Like in stores, there's no menopause aisle, where I think there should be, and particularly when you're talking about products that need to be together in order to understand, look, we're here to help all different parts.
I think this is changing. We're right at the precipice of that change.
Really?
And we're DTC and on Amazon right now.
Yes.
And we're getting close to finding a retail partner. But you are seeing the messaging change already.
Yes.
We're not into the anti-aging messaging anymore.
How can you be anti something that you can't change?
Yeah, aging is living.
Yes, exactly.
And so there is no reversing We can slow it down with sunscreen and hydration. So I think the point is to embrace it, and I feel like I'm seeing it everywhere now in these retail spaces where people are celebrating women of this category.
And that it's not just hair or vag or
It's-
full skin. It's all of the things. And the
Soup to
more,
nuts,
right?
yeah.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Soup to nuts.
Right, soup to nuts. Because it is that big a change. And I think that's why this is so wonderful. And I want to thank you, Naomi, so much for your time and letting me be the one to interview you. And I want to thank you guys all so much for your time.
you for
Just
coming
any last minute questions before I ask, can we take a selfie with you guys and everybody hold up the book? Could we do that? Would you? Okay. Oh, well, turn up the lights. Hey,
Thank you,
yeah.
everyone, for coming out.
Oh, and
It's
thank
very,
you.
very kind of you.
We'll turn on the lights. So I'm just double checking. Any last questions for Naomi? Okay. Oh, yes, right here.
How, on a scale of 1 to 10, where you feel Hollywood is totally supportive, how would you rate Hollywood supporting or shifting their perception of perimenopausal and menopausal women?
I was very scared, and I really oscillated back and forth. Is this a good idea or a terrible idea to announce myself as the menopause lady? In the end, again, I felt too exhausted by carrying this secret, and naming it, owning it, and just sharing it became this best strategy I knew how. And I had this idea for a company, and I wanted to sort of move into that and just and do it. And I felt like it was a good idea, and in a way, I just thought, well, if it spooks people, that's a bummer, but I'll maybe have reflected somebody else's story along the way, helped them feel better about themselves. And actually, not only did Hollywood, and I think of Hollywood, I mean, it's an art-based industry, they're a very progressive industry, so once something is named, it gets better. You do see change take place, and we're seeing it in real time. Like I said, this lineup of women in their 50s producing extraordinary work. And Hollywood gets all the focus. It's just the same as every other industry, though. So I think it's meaningful in good ways in every industry that people are embracing this.
And I think it's also, support women-owned businesses, go see films with women in their midlife. Like, you want to, be the change you see in the world, right? Or whatever that line is. Be the change. And Naomi, you started it.